everybody, welcome back, and if this is your first time, welcome. I'm Jane, and I hope we're going to have some fun today doing an art project. What we're going to do today is we're going to make a water lily pond. Has anybody ever seen paintings by Claude Monet? Claude Monet was a painter who was alive from 1840 to 1926. And he was called an impressionist, which means that he sort of had feelings about how things looked, how light should be, and he did what are called impressionist paintings. He did a lot of water lilies, and I just want to show you a close-up of a painting, or a smaller painting than what I just showed you. That's one of his paintings of water lilies. And the painting that I most love is at the Museum of Modern Art in New York. And you can see how big it is. That's a room, and it's a wonderful place to go. You can just sit on a bench and take it in and just sort of think about, meditate, think about anything you want to think about. It's just a beautiful, relaxing room. So I thought what we'd do today is make our version of a water lily pond. So what we're going to do is learn how to make the flowers, and then we're going to cut out the palm fronds, and the water is the light blue. So let me go over the materials we're going to need today. I'm just going to put this aside. The materials we're going to need today, we're going to need construction paper. You're going to need green, and you're going to need blue. Now, it doesn't matter which shade of green. My pack of construction paper has, I think, 12 colors in it. So I've got 2 different shades of blue, and I've got 2 different shades of green. It doesn't matter what you have, whatever you like. The next thing we're going to need is we're going to need some watercolors. You've had these from other projects. If you don't have any watercolors, you can always use markers, the washable markers. And with the watercolors, you're going to need a brush. And you're going to need some craft glue. And you're going to need scissors. You're going to need a plastic wrap, saran wrap, whatever. And you're going to need some coffee filters, some basket type coffee filters. My filters happen to be sort of a junior size. If yours are bigger, that's okay too, whatever. But they need to be the basket type, not the cone type. I also always have pencils handy, and optionally a glue stick and some tape, depending on what you're going to do with your flowers. So I think we should get busy and make the flowers. So let me get some of this stuff out of the way. And I'm going to get my paints open. And what I'm going to do is put out a piece of saran wrap. That's what I'm going to be painting on. But let's start with the coffee filters. You're going to need, per flower, you're going to need 2 coffee filters. So you can see in this bunch, there are 2 filters. So I've got 2 filters together, and you want to work with these together so they're the same, when you cut them, they're the same. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them, I'm going to fold them in half. Okay, so I'm folding my coffee filters in half, then I'm going to fold them in half again, and I'm going to fold them in half again, and then I'm going to fold them in half once more. So this is what you end up with when you've folded them. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a V at the top. I would normally not draw this, but I just want you to see what I'm going to be cutting. I would just cut it by eye, but I'll draw it so you'll see. I'm going to cut a V, an upside down V at the top. So let me do that right now with my scissors. I'm going to cut and I'm going to cut. So now let me get rid of this excess filter paper. So now I've got my V. Now this is going to be the size of the flower. Let's say you wanted a smaller flower. Again, I would take 2 filters and I'm going to fold it in half, fold it in half again, fold it in half again, and fold it in half again. So I've got this size, same size flower. If I wanted a smaller flower, all I have to do is cut off. So now it's a smaller flower, and I can cut that V again. The V is important, this upside down V, because if you look at water lilies, that's the shape of the petals. So now I have 2 different size water lilies, but I still have to paint them and I still have to do some more cutting. So I'm opening this up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut each petal about 2/3 of the way down. So not quite to the center, but close. So you can see here's the center, and I cut down to about here. Okay, so I'm going to keep cutting. Cut, 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 cut. And then I have to open this up because the final 2, let's see where that is, where here, the final 2, like here's one and here's one, didn't get cut because they were folded in half. I'm going to cut them, and I'm going to cut them. Okay, and if you were doing this one, just like the last one, see it's much smaller. I'm going to cut, cut. Now I could have cut this while it was folded in half, which I probably should have done. You can do it either way. Okay, and I'm going to show you in a second when we start painting how if you don't have paints, you can do it with your markers. Okay, so I've cut this. I have 2 flowers that I can work with. The first thing I'm going to do on this bigger flower, I'm going to paint the bigger flower. So the first thing I'm going to do, I've tried this a few different ways, and I find that it's easier if you wet the flower first. So I'm just going to paint it with water with my bigger brush. I have a smaller brush that fell on the floor, and I'll pick that up in a minute. But I'm going to paint this with water, and then it lays down really nicely on the saran wrap, on the plastic wrap, and it's much easier to paint, and the paint sort of flows on it nicely. Okay, now, if you'll give me a second, I'm going to pick up my paintbrush from the floor. Here's my smaller paintbrush, and I've got my watercolors, and I think I'm going to do this one in blues. You could choose any colors. You could do varying colors. You could make lots of colors. But let's me start with some light blue. I want it pretty watery. So I'm going to just go with each petal. I'm going to go from the inside out. Now I'm not going to use any green in this because the leaves are green, so I figure I want the flowers to be different. So this is pretty easy once you get going. And you want the paint pretty watery. Okay, now let me take another blue. This is a darker blue. And I'm gonna, it's almost a purple. And I'm gonna paint. And paint. And what's nice is you don't have to plan too much. The paint sort of takes over and does what it wants to do. So as you can't be precious about this, as you know, whatever happens, happens, and it's sort of really wonderful. Sometimes like some great happy accidents happen that you're not even thinking about doing. Okay, we're almost done with this. Okay, so it's really all painted. Just gonna go over the tips, make sure everything has some color. This one needs a little more color. And now I'm not gonna do anything to it, I'm gonna let it dry, but you can see what I've got on this one. Now, if you don't have watercolor paints, you can use markers. So I've got some markers here, and I'll choose, let's do some pinks and oranges and reds in this case. And I'm not gonna do the whole thing, but what I would do is start laying down some color, however you wanna lay it down. On the coffee filter. And the reason you do two filters together is because you want the flower to be one flower. You're going to be using two filters for each flower. So you want to do this with the filters together so the flowers are all the same color and all the same sort of painting type. Okay, so let me just put a little pink and I'll show you what happens when I add water to this. It kind of all flows together because these are washable markers. That means they will wash away with water. Okay, so let me show you with some water. I'm going to get some clean water. That's blue. Okay, now if I do this, you can see that the marker starts to bleed. And you get, you know, some nice color in there. So this would be watercolors, and this is markers. Now, when you finish this whole thing, you've got to let it dry thoroughly. So I'm going to put this aside, and then we're going to start the next phase of this. So I'm putting this aside, and I'd have to let it dry. It's going to take probably 3 to 4 hours to dry. So this is not going to be a 10-minute project. This will take a little while. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make my background. I'm going to make my pond and I'm going to make my leaves. So I'm going to use the light blue paper and I'm going to use the green for the leaves. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to draw some rough circles. Just very lightly, of different sizes. Okay, so I've got 2 circles here that you can hardly see, and I'm going to cut those out. I could even fit more circles on here. I'm going to cut these circles out. They don't have to be perfect. If they're a little oval, that's fine. If they're weirdly shaped, doesn't matter. Whatever you like, you do. Okay, so here's one. And let me find the other one. And the same way that we cut V's into the top of the flowers, we're going to cut a V into the top of the leaf. It's going to be a softened V. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And now I've got the shape of my lily pad. It's almost like a heart, but not really. So again, I'm going to cut a soft V into the leaf. And now I've got my leaves for my project. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to make the flower. So a couple of days ago, I painted this flower and I very carefully lifted it off the plastic wrap. And again, you cannot use paper towels when you're doing this. You can't. You have to use plastic wrap, or you can use wax paper. If you use paper towel, the paper towel will leach the color out, so you won't have as colorful a flower. So I've carefully lifted this off, and now I'm going to carefully separate the two filters. And it looks like, see how you do that? Just very carefully. Don't do anything very quickly. But it also looks like I put 3 filters together. And you really only need 2. So I'm going to just put one aside. So now you can see that I have these 2 very flimsy filters, and how pretty they dry. You know, there's a little bit of purple in this with some blue. Now what I'm going to do is to start this, and let me get my paste ready, my glue. Okay, so to start this, what I do is I just want to I use the eraser part of a pencil. You can use anything that makes sense to you. I just sort of put the middle over something to get it started. And then when it's kind of coming together, I take it and I put a little twist in it. Okay, so I just twist the bottom of this, okay? And I don't really have to do anything to the petals right now. I twist it, and then what I'm gonna do is take my glue. Let me see if I can get some out of here. Okay, my problem is I didn't close it, so it's, okay, here we go. Here's a little glue. Okay, I'm just gonna put the tiniest dab of glue on the end of this. You don't want too much on the end, because then it's gonna get all messy. Then I'm gonna take my other flower, my other coffee filter flower, and I'm gonna put it right in the middle, and I'm gonna kind of grab it around the flower, the first flower. And this craft glue is gonna take a little bit to dry. So I'm gonna just have, now you can see I've got this really pretty flower. I'm gonna put this aside and let it dry so that it doesn't open up. There's that little bit of glue in here that'll glue both of these together. So I'm just gonna put this aside. And in the meantime, let's go back to the other flowers that I made. And I can show you how to finish this off. So let's say you want 2 palm fronds, or I should say lily leaves, and you want 3 flowers, whatever you want, it doesn't matter. So what I can do is I can either use my craft glue, or I can use, for the construction paper part of this, I can use my regular glue stick. So I'm gonna glue this down. Glue each of these down. You can arrange them however you want. And now I'm going to take my better glue, my craft glue, and I'm going to see, you can see now that this flower stays together, it doesn't come apart. You can fluff up the petals if you want to, but it's pretty good. And I'm going to put a little dab of glue, if I can get any out of here. Put a little dab of glue on here. And I can put it on the paper wherever I want. And I'm gonna put another dab of glue on here. And I'm gonna put it here. And then, let's see, this is the flower that I already made. Put a little more glue on here. And I'm gonna let all this dry. And now you've got your water lilies, just like Monet. Now, if you wanna make your pond a little bigger, you could always take 2 pieces of paper and tape them together. or just do one like I did. So that's the project. Now I just want to show you one more thing. So when you're making these flowers, these are the first two that I made. So they're a little different than the lilies. These were just regular flowers that I made, and I made them more colorfully than I did the other ones. I used lots of color, and in these I kind of used the same color because I looked at pictures of lilies. But these, instead of cutting a V, I just cut a curve on the filter. So they're more curved. What you can always do is you could take a straw, you could put the crimped part in the straw, glue it in there, and then put a few of these in a vase, and you've got a vase of flowers. So that's the project for today, Monet's water lilies, and I hope you had a good time. As I always say, be kind, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.